Hi everybody, I am so excited. This is our very first video in a new segment where we talk to some of Detroit Sewn's customers to glean some information about different areas of them and their brands and their products that make them successful. So today we are starting with the one and only Carrie Heller, who is a long-time Detroit Sewn customer. And it would be very strange if a week went by and we did not see Carrie in our doors.
Many times.
Or maybe a day. Maybe if a day went by. And Carrie has a knack for selling into stores that I thought would be very, very useful for you to all hear. So whether you are selling in person or on the phone or via email, he's going to talk about how to go about it, his tips and tricks, and whatnot. So, Carrie, why don't you start by explaining some of the different types of products that you sell into stores?
Well, that's a good question because it is important to really think about the products that you sell and to have a niche within that world, because that is an important thing. The products that I sell are made in USA apparel, promotional items of all kinds. And we sell to corporations, organizations, municipalities who have a strong interest in buying made in USA product. So if you think of it in terms of maybe it's not the best example, but like a rifle, a gun where you're shooting all over the place, that's not what I do. I'm very laser focused on my customer, on what I'm selling them, and making sure that I am pointed in the right direction so that I am more likely to get a sale when I actually go and I aim that at a potential customer. So I sell clothing. Apparel is my strong suit, and also promotional products we do a good amount of.
Preparation is very important. So what should somebody have ready before they actually take that first step through the door of a store?
There are a couple different, well, that's a good point also. Store is kind of a big word. So you can sell into a retail store that is a mom and pop shop that has, let's say, one location. And that's a different approach than if you're trying to sell into, let's say, an association, let's say gift shops, which is, for me, a much better environment to sell in, because you're selling into hundreds of stores at the same time. So if you go to a mom and pop shop, where that's the low-hanging fruit, obviously you want to go where you spend your money. So for example, I like to go to what is it? It's not a flea market, but
Rust
like
Belt?
Yeah, an artist market.
An artist market, yep. And artisans.
Yeah, and I spend a good amount of money with several people there because I really like to shop local and I like what they have. So I had a new product that you're familiar with because you helped me develop it and make it, and it's a very it's a really niche product that stands out, and I knew that it would do well in this store. So I approached the owner, who I was already friendly with, so it was a really easy sell.
Good way to start.
I just had the jacket, and I walked in, and I said, "Hey, look at this," and she said, "Oh my gosh, I gotta have that," and I said, "Okay." So that's one way to do it, and that's where everybody has to start. So you go to where you spend your money, to where your relationships are, to who your friends are, and you just walk in with a product. But the product has to fit the customer. I was just
gonna say that.
So that is like a super important thing, that you're selling to the right audience, and it goes back to being kind of laser focused with how you approach things and your target market, your demographic. So that is important to always keep that in mind. But always start with the low-hanging fruit. Those are your friends, your family, and keep in mind that there's no way to get around it. Even selling to friends and family, which can be harder, you have to hustle in this business. There's no escaping it. You have to grind and grind and grind. For every yes, there's probably 20 no's.
Right.
And that's just the way it goes. So that's how you start.
And so if it's just stick to the mom and pop shop. So say it's one that you don't really have a contact there, but you know that your product is a good fit for that store. So what are you bringing with you into that store? What is your preparation for that?
First, I'm gonna scope the place out. I'm gonna walk in. I'll use a store around here. There's a high-end store in Birmingham where I thought that our jacket would do well. And so I walked in and I kind of look around. I see the landscape, see who's who, and if I feel like, and it's also important to note, you don't go into a retail store on a Saturday afternoon when
Right.
they're doing all their business. You go in on like a Monday afternoon or a Monday evening where they're slow, where you can actually stop and talk to somebody and they're not going to get upset and they're actually going to be able to hear you.
Mm-hmm.
So you would look for the manager for sure. That's your first point of contact, and you would talk to them. You would talk to them about the product. I wouldn't bring any product at first. I would just really, because you're also selling yourself. When you're doing a sale like this, you have to make a relationship.
Yeah, that's really
And
interesting.
You start by making that relationship, making sure that the person has the authority to actually buy something, or if they don't, if let's say you meet a manager and you become friendly with the manager, so you want the manager to be able to give you the buyer's contact information. So you have to make sure you're talking to the right person, that you're developing a relationship. Don't push too hard at first. And just kind of say, hey, I have this product, I'm local to you, I shop at your store all the time, would the buyer be interested in looking at something? And more times than not, the answer is yes, that they'll look at it. So that's where I start in mom and pop shops, and that can be a high-end retail store, or it can be a secondhand consignment store where I think maybe something might do really well.
So let's say you get the right contact and they say, yeah, we're willing to look at it. So obviously at that point, you're bringing in the product. Are you also bringing in a line sheet?
I don't. I bring in a product, I give them an idea of what it costs and say, hey, can we try this? So I go kind of slow. And I want to kind of keep it informal because I don't want to feel like I'm presenting something so strongly, like here, you have to take this and here's everything that we do. That's another important point. You can't sell 18,000 things at once. It just never works. So that's why I don't bring a line sheet. I always stick to 1 or 2 products, 3 at the most. So if you present 3 products to a buyer, they're much more likely to buy one of them than if you bring a whole line sheet of so much that it's just overwhelming to them.
That's
and
a
they
great
instantly
point.
just turn off. And I do that in everything that I do. So if I'm sending emails, which in today's day and age, you're selling a lot via email.
Okay.
You're selling a lot over the phone. In my world, it's fairly rare that I actually get in to go and see a customer because my customers are all over the country.
Right.
Do
you think one method is easier?
For me, selling over the phone and over the internet is easier because it's what I've been doing for so long. So I can make a really close relationship over the phone and with email because it's just so easy to shoot an email to somebody and to become friendly like that with the person. So that is my preferred way to sell, but I always love being able to go and have an interaction with a customer, to
Sure.
go see them. So I prefer selling online, and especially in this business. And if you're talking about the promotional products business, let's say you're selling a mug, and you're selling it to an association. So for me, it would be the national parks. It's so much easier to send an electronic mock-up of the mug and a price, and say, hey, could this be something? Obviously, you've done your homework before that. You've developed the art that goes onto the product, which is very important. And so in that way, in this business, selling over email and phone it's 90% of what you do, and 10% would be meeting customers who are local to you. Because obviously, if you have a customer, we have a mutual friend that is one of my customers, Detroit Sewn. So how can I not go and say hi to Tammy? I have to. She buys from me all the time, and I've got to go in there and support her too. And I make sure to do that. So it's always fun to do. Also, it gets you out of the office, and so I enjoy that as well. Yeah.
Okay, so email's an interesting one because I am sure I'm kind of sticking with stores right now because I think a lot of people who are watching this video are thinking, more laser focused on getting their brand into a store that they like, that they think would be a good fit for them. So if you're emailing, I have to assume that these store owners or the buyers for the stores are getting a flurry of requests. So how do you break through? How do you not pester them but still get seen?
That's the $1,000,000 question, right? So you have to be persistent. There's no doubt about that. But you also have to not be tone deaf and overwhelm somebody, because that's the quickest way to get shut down is to just overwhelm someone with a bunch of emails. I mean, personally, I get hundreds of emails every single day from people who are selling me a product that I would never ever use in the first place.
Same.
And it's ridiculous. And so I make sure that I'm talking to the right person. And that's another good point is, how do you get through the gatekeeper, right? So that is in the world of email and phone call. That's where you separate the men from the boys. So
or the women from the girls.
So the way I do it is I find who the gatekeeper is, number one, and I make friends with them. That's the best way to do it. And how do you do that? You call them maybe on a Friday and you talk to somebody. Oh, is the buyer in today? Oh no, they're not. I'm sorry. Oh, what did you do this weekend? So I pivot right away from a sales pitch to how do I talk about anything except for what I'm really trying to accomplish here, which is sell my product to you. So I want to become your friend. So I'm going to talk to you about whatever it is that you want to talk about.
He has accomplished this very well, by the way, very well.
So that's what I do, and I make that person my friend. So when there is an opportunity, that person is actually going to sell my product for me. I'm not going to do it because she already has the information. She knows what I do, or he, and they're in the office. And if there's an issue with a buyer, in this business, a lot of times there are a good amount of mistakes made, or there's not great communication kept from the salesperson and the buyer, and there's a mistake,
or something always just goes wrong, or gets delayed,
and that's your opportunity to get in, because now they're looking for somebody else. And the person who you've befriended said, "Oh, I've got this guy, and he's been contacting, and he seems to be really good. You should try these guys out." And that's how I approach that cold call situation. And that's a hard situation. It's tough to do, but this business is a grind. You have to do it. And the great thing is that after you've been grinding and grinding and grinding, one of those stores that you have long forgotten about probably will call you and say, "I have an order for you." And you're like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't thought about that person or that store in so long, and here's a great order." So that's how this business works. And really that's how selling anything works. You have to grind, you have to get out there, you have to talk to the right people, don't overdo it, and good things will happen.
Yeah. And don't worry if you think you suck at selling, because it's just practice.
It's just practice.
The only way you're going to get better at it is by doing it until you get to a certain level of comfort and confidence in selling like that.
Our company does a lot of retail sales ourselves. We have our own very successful website that is laser focused, like everything that we do, on only made in USA products. So if it's someone who wants a baby onesie in California, or someone who wants a pair of socks in wherever it is, they can go into our website and they can buy the product there. So we have several customer service reps who answer the phones. And every year during the holiday season, which is already kicked off, is now, we have to hire a couple more people because the phone is just ringing, and thank God, ringing. So what's interesting is that every time I train somebody, and every time I have one of our managers train somebody, the real barrier to actually getting them going is becoming comfortable getting on the phone.
Yeah.
People are so afraid to pick up a phone and make a phone call. And
especially today.
Yes. Yeah, especially.
People don't like to talk on the phone anymore at all.
But that is room for an advantage.
Yeah.
That really is, because when you do that, you're already separating yourself from the rest of the herd, who's just shooting an email and hoping someone's it's never gonna happen. So getting on the phone and getting comfortable being on the phone is very, very important. And the way that you talk, the way that you, what you're doing when you're communicating with someone on the phone is almost like a dance, and you have to be aware of when to say something and when to listen.
Yes.
And there's an art to it. But the first thing that is the main barrier is just getting on the phone and being comfortable and saying, hey, I'm Carrie, here's what I do, or answering a customer service call. It's the same thing. And once you've been doing it for so long, it just becomes second nature. And you don't worry about it. The ones that I worry about are the tough calls. I just had a phone call on the way here. They pay half up front, and this is a 6-figure order. They pay half up front and they pay half when the order is delivered. And we float that order for a long time because it takes a long time. It's custom artwork. There's a lot that goes into it. It's packed per employee, so it's a really in-depth order. And I get a notice of impending funds transfer from their bank for half of the order, which is a lot of money. And I'm like, yes, thank God, finally this one's done. I can put the lid on this one. This one is in bed, we're closed, done. Of course, then I realized, wait a minute, our bank account got compromised 4 months ago, and this order took like 8 or 9 months to do. And I already know that wire transfer is not gonna go through. So the whole weekend, after I'm so happy that I got paid, and I realized, wait a minute, we're not getting money because that's an old bank account. We had to close it. So on the way over here, I called the buyer, he's the boss, and he doesn't like this stuff. This is the kind of stuff that drives him crazy. He's a big picture kind of guy. He wants to know the whole thing is going to go well in his way. So I don't want to make that phone call and say, hey, listen, you guys paid us, but I messed up because I didn't give you the new account number. And so this wire transfer is not going to go through, because now it just makes one more thing on his plate that he's got to deal with. So those are the tough calls. The calls that are just hi and friendly, and those are easy for me. The hard ones are the ones where you really have to. Maybe you're going to tell a customer that you're not going to meet their enhanced date, which is a big thing in this business. Or maybe you're going to tell a consignment vendor that, wait a minute, you've given them 16 jackets and they've only paid you for 2, and you walk in the store and you don't really see many. So how do you approach that? That's a tough conversation. And that's one of the reasons I don't like to consign things. I do sometimes, but only with people who I'm close with and who I really trust.
That was actually my next question for you, is to talk about the difference between wholesale and consignment, and then terms for both.
Yeah. Also important to note that you have the price points right. When you're selling into a retail store, typically a retail store is going to, they're going to do what's called keystone, which is everything that they buy, they're going to mark up at least 100%. So if they buy something for 50, they're selling it for 100. So you can't go into a retail store and sell a jacket for $100, $150 if the markup isn't there on their end, right, to go and do a keystone, which is what if they're successful, that's what they're going to do. So you have to have your price point right, number one, and make that wholesale to retail deal workable for the buyer. Because if wholesale to retail, make sure that you put your markup on it, but it can't be so much that it puts you out of the game. And that's important when you're talking to the vendors who you purchase from and negotiating terms and payment. A lot of times in this business, when you call a promotional product supplier, they might have a special going on that you're not even aware of, and it could be substantial. I always ask, can you give me a discount? Can you give me a better price? Do you have any sales going on right now? And that allows you to make a little bit more money when you're going into the store and setting your price.
So that could be good for, say, a brand that decorates on pre-made t-shirts. Absolutely. So that could give you an opportunity to find a sale on the type of t-shirt that you like, get a better price so that you can get a better margin on your end.
Correct. So, and to note, a lot of this takes a long time to learn. So
that's what we're here for.
Yep, there's a learning curve. It can be a little bit steep, but the more you do it, the better you get at it. We keep saying that over and over, and it is the absolute truth. So selling into a retail store it's not easy. For me, I like to focus more on the wholesale side, corporations, organizations, municipalities, because the sales are just larger, and that's how I built my business. But either way, and I like to get into retail stores through, like I said, through larger associations, and the only way to learn who those are is to stay in the game and to keep doing it and keep talking to people.
Yeah.
So the way that we got into America's National Parks is because I've talked to a person so many times that when a request for a bid came out, I was notified of it. I didn't even know it. Someone asked me to do it, and that's by talking to people, becoming friends with people, becoming friendly with people, and that's how I approach sales in general.
Yep.
And the more you do it, the more you're connected, and the phone starts ringing more and more and more.
Talk about consignment terms.
Consignment terms, 60% for the seller and 40% for the vendor is what I'm comfortable with. Especially, like I said, if I'm taking a product like the jackets that we do into a store, that's a highly customized jacket, and it's good for them because it sets them apart.
Sure.
The jacket that we do is this store's biggest draw into the store because they've got it lit and it's up on a high, and your eye goes right to it. So you're taking space in their store.
Yeah.
So they definitely are going to get a nice chunk, but for me, 60% for the seller, 40% for the buyer is a good deal because it still enables them to make a good amount of money. However, it's your product and your expense, and it's your money sitting there until it sells.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Any don'ts?
There's a lot of don'ts. There's a lot of don'ts. Unfortunately, a lot of them, like everything in life, you learn the hard way.
I don't know what you mean.
What are some don'ts in this business? Promotional products and wearables. Some of the lessons that I've learned are don't tell the customer what they like.
That's a really good one.
I learned that the hard way, and I learn it all the time because if I love something, which is another point that we should make here, you shouldn't try to sell something unless you love it. You have to have a passion for what you're doing. You have to have a knowledge of the product, and you got to be excited about it. And unless you are, you're not going to be successful. But I get so hyped up about some of my products that I go to the buyer and I say, "This is you. This is the coolest thing in the world. You need this," and right away, it turns them off.
Yeah.
Especially with some of the stronger customers that I have who. They don't want to be told anything.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, here you are telling them what they're supposed to like. So I don't ever do that. I don't make that mistake anymore. I show them something, and I wait for their response. And a lot of the times, I don't necessarily love the design that the customer chooses. I would like something different. So don't speak for your customer. Always give them, like I said, 2 or 3 options, not too many. That's another mistake that everybody makes when they're starting out. You want to give someone 18 or 20 different options of a t-shirt, and when you do that, you're not going to sell anything because the brain just becomes overloaded and all of a sudden shut down.
It's like, now I've got to think.
Yeah, and you don't want that. You want to guide your customer in to the product. You don't want to tell them, and the way you do it is by carefully curating what you're going to show them in the first place. Put some thought into it, into who is the customer, what kind of things do they do, and that's how you curate the products that you're going to actually show the customer. And then once you do, make sure you're focused on, okay, these are the 3 that we have, which one are we going to sell? So those are some do's and some don'ts, but you know what? In this business, you learn, like I said, unfortunately the hard way. I'll give you an example. We have one of the stores we have for the parks is Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore, right? And we're very proud of that account because we keep a lot of artists working, and it's very good for our business, and it was a hard fought account to get and to keep. It's very difficult. However, we sell them a lot of shirts. So I sold another order of, I think, 280 shirts on one order or something like that, 300 shirts. It was a decent size order for a park. Keep in mind, these are fairly small gift shops, so they
Sure.
don't have the room to keep 1,000 t-shirts. They buy a little, more frequently and a little less.
Yeah. So
I was told that they were going to get the designation for national park instead of a national lakeshore.
Mm-hmm.
The national park is the highest designation in this area that you can get. Like Sleeping Bear Dunes here in Michigan is a national lakeshore.
Okay.
It's not a national park. So I sent, and then I heard that they did get that designation because I was talking to my friend who's the buyer, right? My friend, and she told me this. She told me it became a national park. I never received anything official. I didn't get an email. I didn't get a phone call from the main office from corporate saying, hey, make sure that on the new orders going forward, you change the name. I just sent out the same order that we always did. And the first time, they sent the t-shirts back. So I came up with an idea to cross off Lakeshore with red and put
oh my gosh,
park.
that is so brilliant.
And it went great. And they sold through those shirts and they reordered them. And it was wonderful. But
That's thinking on your feet right there.
they told me at one point, okay, it's enough. Let's change it to national park.
Yeah.
But you get so many things going on during the day in this business, and you jump on a phone, and then another email comes, and sometimes you lose stuff. And a new order came, and I printed all the shirts again with National Lakeshore, and it's like I made the same mistake 3 times, and I was given the grace of actually selling the product 3 times, but on the 4th time they were done. So you don't even have the conversation. You don't say, wait a minute, nobody told me informally. Right. You eat it. You just ate all those t-shirts. You take them back and you replace it. So those kinds of things in this business, you learn. One of the don'ts is don't ever approve anything for your customer. Your customer always has to give written approval, and it has to be on a carefully laid out proof. So in this business, proofs are very, very important, and don't proof for your customer because you're gonna miss something. There's no doubt about it. And words get misspelled, and you're used to seeing these things 100 times a day, and it looks great. And all of a sudden,
and somebody tells you something and you think of it as something else. So they have a clear picture in their mind of what they want, and you have a clear picture in your mind of what they're telling you, and they're not the same thing at all.
Not the same thing at all. And so I don't ever approve things for my customers. And some customers don't like that. And sometimes a customer will approve something and it'll be wrong. They approve something with a typo, with it misspelled. And I have a customer in New York who's a very strong character, and he approved a proof, and I sent the order, and the guy's screaming at me over the phone, and he's swearing at me too. He's the best customer when he's the best, and he's the worst.
Those customers.
He's the worst when he's the worst, and I do have a couple of those customers, and he's really, really upset that these shirts that he needed for one of his events are spelled wrong, and he screams into the phone, and don't tell me because I know you're going to say it. I know I approved the proof. So, in those cases, you say, you know what? You don't have a problem. There's no problem. So you replace that merchandise. And in this business, like I keep saying, you have to make friends, you have to make relationships, and that comes with a price. A lot of nice orders, but you have to know when to relent and to say, hey, I'm going to service the customer and make the customer happy, because
in the long run it's worth it.
It's more than worth it in the long run, and really it tightens the relationship. So when you make a mistake like that and you own it and you fix it, even if it's not your mistake, like in this case, you still go above and beyond to make the customer happy, because it's all about reorders and it's all about the relationship. And when there is a problem, when you need their help, like let's say you have a big invoice that's not paid. Well, that's a huge corporation. I mean, you can get paper shuffle all day long, and you need that money. So you call your customer who swore at you because you misspelled a word. And
Still don't have any of those customers.
And you say, listen, I need a favor. I got to get this invoice paid. It's been outstanding. Can you help me out? And all of a sudden, you get it paid. So that's, those are a few tips and tricks of what I do.
Thank you so much. I hope this has been very useful for everybody. Our whole goal with all of these videos that we make is to help you learn and understand the business better so you don't waste your money. And keep on the lookout for more of these Detroit Sewn customer chats.
It's been fun.
Thanks, Carrie.
You're welcome.